Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day and drinking the sweet nectar of the gods from their juxtaposition coffee mug. I know I am. All right. Today's video will be entitled Liars Club Hall of Fame, or perhaps I should say Hall of Shame, right? This is the Brutal Truth channel. Juxtaposition One's channel is based on brutal truth and cathedral building because it's not a Debbie Downer channel. This is shaming the Liars Club, shaming the enemies of humanity is something to the order of demolitioning the foundation site of your future cathedral. Your cathedral of celebration of all that is good in this world cannot be built until we demo the foundation and lay the pillars of truth that we will build a church upon, right? You don't have to be defeated. You can rise up. We will stir up our gifts. We will move forward and take possession. Yes, we will. We will take the high ground. Are you tired? Are you confused? Well, I got news for you. So too is Satan, and he hasn't won. We need to stand up and we need to keep pressing on every day. We will stand and hold our ground. Yes, we will. We say no to biometrics. We say no to PCR DNA collection procedures. We say no to Real ID. We say no to politicians. We say no to pledging allegiance to a 13-stripe Swiss colonial flag. We say no. Don't let a dead snake make you settle for less. Don't make a Swiss bank authority figurine ruin your life. People like Larry Ratfink, who is the managing director of the World Economic Forum. People like Klaus Schwab, an electrical engineer who lost his way long ago. Charles Schwab. I'm sorry, I'm confusing him with another Wall Street shyster. All right, anyway, I'm talking about Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab. And I'm talking about Steven Schwartzman, who is the managing director of Blackstone, whereas Larry Ratfink is the managing director of BlackRock and also the World Economic Forum. But I'm talking about the United Nations. I'm talking about the World Bank. I'm talking about the International Monetary Fund. I'm talking about Geneva, Switzerland. I'm talking about the House of Peace and NATO. Talking about CERN, International Telecommunications Union. I'm talking about maritime law. I'm talking about the 26 cantons of Switzerland. I'm talking about Zurich, Basel, Bank for International Settlements. I'm talking about Bern, Switzerland, Lugano, Switzerland. And I'm talking about Zug, Switzerland, talking about CRISPR Therapeutics, central bank digital currency, DNA, molecular gene slicing, gene editing. I'm talking about that. I'm talking about cryptocurrency. I'm talking about Liechtenstein and Davos, but mostly I'm talking about Liechtenstein. All right. Don't let a snake make you settle for less. Those are the credos that we follow here as a paid member of the Juxtaposition One channel. And we also showcase our handsome coffee mugs, which will contain adult beverages from time to time. All right. I'm going to start out with nationally known fraudsters. Then I'm going to move into regional. And then I'm going to move into your strategic Hamlet neighborhood. And then perhaps some personal liar, pants on fire people who I spent hundreds of hours with in my lifetime. I'm going to name out some of my personal colleagues and cohorts from work and play. Yes, I'm going to throw that into the mix too. So fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy ride. All right. So television seems to be the number one way to disseminate poppycock, balderdash, and mendacity. It's the number one distribution. That's the whole point of radio, television, Netflix, That's the point of newspapers, magazines, periodicals. That's the point of pseudo documentaries and Pulitzer Prizes in science. They have the Nobel Prize. And in diplomacy, they give out awards for Nobel Prize for Peace, for example, or political matters. This is no different than the Academy Awards or the Golden Globe Awards or the Emmy Awards. You give awards to promote certain false beliefs. In other words, the recipients of those awards are merely straw dogs. They have no influence whatsoever in doing anything to deserve the award. They're bestowed the award, and then everybody applauds, and we move into idolatry. Idolatry is a lie, where you worship your fellow man for false pretenses. That's idolatry. It's all based on the idea of star building, star creation, which is all based on lying. All right, so before we start naming the names, let's get into the different types of lies. COVID, of course, was the seminal moment in history, in human history. No lies were told in greater numbers to broader audiences, repeated and rinsed and re-repeated millions of times over a period of 6 years. We've had the COVID lie. There's no such thing as COVID. So right out of the gate, the fact that they named something, the certification of vaccine identity, artificial intelligence acronym for NATO military, tells you that the entire lie is based on an acronym. Prior to that, it was called the coronavirus, which is based upon a trace, track, and targeting corona satellite program where they spy on people using the evil eye in the sky, evil eyes, plural, and trace, track, and target people through their keystrokes on their computer. That's called keyhole and looking glass, as well as your text messages, emails, and voice activated messages via mobile phones. That's all part of Corona spy program. Corona spy program. If you don't know, you have a lot of catching up to do. It goes back decades. All right, so we start out with the innocent lies, the little white lies. Little white lies is like the least important lie of all. It's kind of designed to not hurt someone's feeling. Like, how do I look with this face diaper on? Oh, you look cute, Janice. When you know you're lying, no woman looks cute wearing a face diaper. Anyway, that's a little white lie. Then we upgrade to lies by omission. Like, you're supposed to be Robert Kennedy Jr. Working at the Health Institute administration, and you forget to mention that your third of four wives was garroted in the barn, Mary Richardson. I'm trying to think how many divorces he's had. He's going on to his fourth divorce now, I think, with Cheryl Hines. So I guess it was the second of three divorces. You don't have to get a finalized divorce if your wife dies. So Mary Richardson, I believe, was his second wife. She was garroted, then displayed in her barn in Mount Kisco, New York. And Robert Kennedy never wants to talk about that. He also doesn't talk about, he apparently is a steroid user. And he doesn't want to talk about his heroin conviction for carrying heroin with him at the airport. He doesn't want to talk about that there's no such thing as COVID. He doesn't want to talk about that vaccines should be outlawed and no one should get a vaccine for anything, for the flu, for polio, for nothing. All right, not anymore, because you see all of the products of the pharmaceutical industry are full of nanobots, aluminum chalk, and polymers. So you mustn't inject anything in your body anymore because you'll be tethering yourself to the cloud using a real ID verification body area network, photonic, ultrasonic, magnetic resonance leash. You'll be leashed to the cloud with an invisible leash. Anyway, that's part of errors of omission, lies of omission, like Rand Paul forgetting to mention he has chemtrails all over the skies of Washington, D.C., all over the obelisk, the Washington Monument, all over the reflection pond, all over the state of Kentucky. Rand Paul forgetting to mention that the judges in his state run bordellos and prostitution rings using the county jails and the prostitution probation departments. Rand Paul forgetting to mention that the Kentucky Derby is fully doped and every single horse that you see on television is on dozens of illegal drugs. Rand Paul forgetting to mention that he personally has never seen a chemtrail. That's a bald-faced lie. All right. And he's omitting telling you the truth. So he's lying by omission. Rand Paul is lying by omission. I understand the focus is on Anthony Fauci, but the focus should be on every single member of Congress. Every senator, every House of Representative is a liar, okay? A bald-faced liar. And every person that sits before them, like Rochelle Walensky, okay, she's a bald-faced liar also. We're still waiting for her to confirm how many employees there are at the CDC, Center of Disease Creation. All right, then there are false denials that are based upon truths that are denied, okay? And you see that all the time, you know, with Bill Clinton. I didn't inhale. I never had intercourse with that woman. Okay. Exaggerated lies. Exaggerated lies. For example, during COVID, they said that our hospitals were at 99 to 100% of capacity. Well, that was a bald-faced lie. I personally visited 5 acute care hospitals from Orange County to Marin County to Placer County, 5 hospitals. And since I was a chief financial officer of a hospital, and before that I audited hospitals for 3 years. And after that, I worked with hospitals and medical doctor physicians for over 25 years. I can tell you that I understand how to walk around a hospital and I know my way around the purchasing department, radiology, the pharmacy, the emergency room. And I know where the conference room is and the boardrooms. I know where the acute care and the ICU and critical care units are located. All right. So I'm not like a clueless clown walking around looking for physical therapy and occupational therapy or housekeeping. I know where the departments are located. They're called ancillary services. All right. Well, when they said that hospitals were at full capacity because of all the sick people that were dying of COVID, they were lying to your face. They meaning the news media. The typical hospital operates between, normally operate between 30 and 60% of their capacity. During COVID, I would estimate they're operating between 5 and 10% of their capacity. Now, you have total licensed beds, and then you have total active beds. And during COVID, they dramatically reduced the amount of active beds because everybody fled to shelter in place. Nobody wanted elective surgery during a pandemic, right? So nurses were dismissed, registries were full of unemployed nurses, and the place was a ghost town. Most hospitals only operated the first floor. And they had 4 other floors, which were 100% vacant, ghost town, empty beds. All right. But for purposes of media reporting, they'll say that they were 90% full on their first floor. Well, they may only have 30 or 40 patients on that floor, but they have room for 200 patients, but they only have 30 or 40. So they say, oh, we're, 99% of the capacity on the first floor, but they don't say on the first floor, they say for the hospital. But that's a lie. The hospital is probably licensed for 250 to 500 beds. So they're operating at 5 to 10% of their capacity. All right. I hate to have to explain statistics to people that 99% of statistics are misleading. And during COVID, 100% of any statistic you heard about COVID was a lie. It was a bald-faced lie. 33 new COVID cases today. 6 feet of social distancing. What's 6? 3 and 3. 3 and 3 is 6. What's 3 and 3? It's 33. What's 33? It's the highest level of obedience under the military obelisk chain of command, power of the pyramid. the hierarchy of the chain of command is the obelisk. It's expressed in the form of the obelisk. All right. And the highest level of obedience is 33. And COVID was littered with 33s. 6 feet of social distance, 33 new COVID cases. Those are exaggerated lies. Then we have minimization lies, lies that trivialize the seriousness of the problem. Okay, let me give you an example. Didn't Anthony Fauci and Donald Trumpster, didn't they say 2 weeks to flatten the curve? We just need 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Well, that was a minimized lie. It's still going on. It's 6 years later. I still see people wearing masks in cars, driving alone by themselves. That's a mental illness. That's got nothing to do with COVID. That has everything to do with disability of your tenets of thinking. Then we have fabrication or fake statistical lies. I've already explained 33 new COVID cases and saying that your hospital is operating at 100% of capacity. That's a fabricated, bald-faced lie. Then we have broken promises, which again, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? That was a bald-faced, broken promise. Then we have blue lies, lies for personal gains, like Dr. Fauci being anointed, the chancellor of the Ministry of Truth. Where remember people used to say that Anthony Fauci is science and we must follow the science. My aunt foolishly said to me, we all need to get behind Dr. Fauci. Well, he's not a doctor. He doesn't see patients. He's not a clinician. He's an administrator. He's a stooge. He's a puppet. I don't need to get behind a puppet. And I most definitely don't take health advice from a person who doesn't see patients. Anthony Fauci is not in the health business. He doesn't know anything about health. Okay? All right, that's a blue lie. Then we have black lies. Those are malicious lies designed to cause harm. When you talk about essential businesses, okay, in my town, we had 2 bike stores when COVID broke out, and today we have 0. And supposedly COVID is over. We went from 2 to 0. What do you call that? I call that a malicious attack on small business. Do you know we have boarded up other businesses besides bicycling? And we had plans to move forward with other businesses that were canceled. So we had the mass destruction of family-owned businesses in my town. I call that malicious. I call that COVID a pack of black lies. Then we have plagiarism. We have people taking credit for things they stole from other people, like NATO intelligence services who tell you what to say. Then we have compulsive lies and compulsive liars. People like Oliver Silverstein Stone. He's a compulsive liar. He did a film on John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and Oliver Stone specifically deleted the obelisk from that story. He didn't go anywhere near the railroad trestle over Main Street. He promoted the poppycock idea that there were shooters shooting at the limousine from the grassy knoll, picket fence area. That's a bald-faced lie. There was not a single shot that came from the picket fence that went into the limo or hit Jack Kennedy. That's a bald-faced lie. All right. And Oliver Silverstein, that's his name, Silverstein, he didn't mention Philip Willis, who said there were over 24 men standing on the railroad trestle over Main Street. Why did you delete that, Oliver Silverstein? Huh? Why would you do that? That sounds like a compulsive lie to me. Yeah, it does. Then we have pathological lying. And, people who work for the CIA are pathological liars, right? People like Richard Helms, for example, Alan Dulles, for another example, Andrew Napolitano, for another example, Victor Davis Hanson, for another example, Rachel Madcow of Stanford University as another example. These are pathological liars. They deliberately conceal material facts and circumstances like smart dust, chemtrails. That makes you a pathological liar. Then we have narcissistic lies, like Geraldo Rivera does. Then we have self-deception lies. That's where you have clueless people on the internet who rinse and repeat the lies of others, lies of Tucker Carlson, lies of Glenn Greenwald, lies of Catherine Austin Fitz, lies of people such as London Real, London Real, and all the guests that appear on London Real, and Joe Rogan, and Lex Friedman, and Alex Jones, and Tucker Carlson, like Eric Weinstein, Brett Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein. If your name is Weinstein, you're going to get nothing but lies, period. End of story. All right, let me get into some names. All right, so in the Hall of Fame category, we got Lance Armstrong, which means you have Phil Knight and Nike, because without Phil Knight and Nike and Tom Weisel of Montgomery Securities, now called Tom Weisel Partners, you would never have a cancer survivor, Lance Armstrong, winning 7 Tour de France's and lying about it before, during, and after, taking illegal drugs the entire time, as does everyone in all sports. And Phil Knight knows that, and so does Tom Weisel. He knows it too, and they don't care. They're okay to lie, and they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, because really Phil Knight of Nike is the #1 liar in sport entertainment history, followed by Tom Weisel, followed by Lance Armstrong. Then you can start talking about Tiger Woods, Marion Jones, okay, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and they're all sponsored by Phil Knight. Those are all Phil Knight people, along with Roger Federer from Switzerland. He's the Swiss doper that has many, many championships in tennis, steroid tennis. Roger Federer from Switzerland, but he's sponsored by Phil Knight of Nike. Alex Rodriguez, there's another Nike sponsor, Nike Rodriguez, and he was dating J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez. Well, that implicates the Los Angeles Lakers, and that implicates LeBron James, and it also implicates all the liars who attend Laker games and appear on television, like Jack Nicholson, like Leonardo DiCaprio, like Brad Pitt, like Alex Rodriguez, like J-Lo. And before Alex Rodriguez, we had P. Diddy sitting with J-Lo, and we also had Ben Affleck. So J-Lo goes to the Laker games where everybody's on drugs, and J-Lo is sitting with Ben Affleck or P. Diddy or Alex Rodriguez. Now she sits alone because she's all divorced for the 4th time, a lonely fly girl from In Living Color. J-Lo never made it in singing. She was a fly girl dancer for the TV show In Living Color, which the only real star that came out of that show was Jim Carrey, the white guy. If you go to New York, you're going to see Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller is a big Lance Armstrong supporter. He's a big New York Knicks supporter. And he, with Larry David and Taylor Swift, made a mockery of the NBA Finals in 2026. So Ben Stiller is a liar, and he supports doped athletes. And you never hear Ben Stiller talk about illegal doping or fixed games. And those Knicks games were mostly fixed games. Tucker Carlson, his father, Dick Carlson, the voice of public radio, Dick Carlson, works for the CIA. It was an ambassador for the State Department for a atoll archipelago group of islands east of Ethiopia in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Dick Carlson. May Magnan Brussel. Yeah, she's a liar. She got a radio show. We talked about conspiracies, but she never told you the truth about any of them. And then her father, Edgar Magnan was the rabbi to the stars on Wilshire Boulevard at 3663 Wilshire Boulevard, which is a 666 Mark of the Beast address. And he was the rabbi to the stars for 69 years. And 6 plus 9 is 15. 15 is 1 plus 5 is 6. That's a 33. May Brussel and her father, Edgar Magnan, were included in the Liars Club, my Liars Club. Anne Rand, Joan Didion, Seymour Hersh, they all deserve to be in the Hall of Fame of the Liars Club, along with Rand Paul, Ron Paul, Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, John Kennedy, senator from Louisiana, Tony Fauci, Tony Phony Fake Fauci. They all deserve to be in the Liars Club Hall of Fame. Let's get some other ones. How about some bankers? Joe LeCobe of Kleiner Perkins. He deserves to be on there. Eugene Kleiner of Kleiner Perkins. Doug Leone of Sequoia Capital. Bob Valentine of Sequoia Capital. Right. Then we got Jerome Kohlberg of KKR Excel. And we got George Roberts and Henry Kravitz, the barbarians at the gate. They're all full of BS. They finance military subcontractors in Silicon Valley, from Genentech to LSI Logic to Sun Microsystems to Cisco Systems to NVIDIA to Apple Computer to Adobe Systems. You know, it's all military all the time in Silicon Valley. Then we have Christopher Pitster, PhD, electrical engineering from UC Berkeley and the Corey Hall building on the 4th floor. Christopher Pitster of Smart Dust. His cohort, Joy Weiss of Smart Dust. She was CEO of Smart Dust at Dust Networks, which is a RAND corporation, DARPA-funded military weapons base, headquartered at 2626 Phoebehurst Avenue in Berkeley. Then we have Jennifer Doudna, who's just a block away. Jennifer Doudna of the Doudna Lab and Innovative Genomic Institute, run by her second husband, Jamie Kate, and her little mini-me clone, Rachel Horowitz of Caribou Biosciences. And Jennifer Doudna's title now, she got a Nobel Prize, so they upgraded her to Chancellor of Biomedicine at UC Berkeley. Every chancellor of University of California, Berkeley, every person who's a department head at UC Davis, at UCLA, UC San Francisco, UC Berkeley, they are all engaged in pathological lying. They all promoted and pimped out masking, social distancing, COVID vaccine status, ridiculing, humiliating non-vaccinated people, letting them know they're not welcome on their campuses and that they will be banned for life if they lie about their vaccine status. Okay. Then we have Bob Costas, pathological liar for sports entertainment for NBC. He's followed by Al Michaels of Disney ABC, Al Michaels, and Howard Cosell. And cycling, again, with NBC Peacock, you got Phil Liggett and Bob Roll. They engage in pathological lying. We have Krista Sims and Mike DeFlorio. They conceal the truth about doping and illegally fixed games in all professional sports that they cover. Dan Patrick, a former ESPN, now independent podcaster, he conceals doping in sports. Rich Eisen, who now is back at ESPN, you know, where Deanna Rizzini left. So he arrived back. Adam Schefter, Diana Rizzini, the former presidents of Disney, Michael Eisner, Bob Iger, all engaging in pathological lying regarding putting lipstick on a pig and calling it sports when it's fixed, rigged, and doped. And none of them talk about their products being fixed, rigged, and doped, but they are. And since they're cheerleaders for fixed, rigging, and doping, that makes them liars and hypocrites. All right. Then we have every single courtroom in America is a COVID believer cult. The judge wears a black robe. They wear a face diaper. They make everyone in the courtroom be diapered up and face masked. That is a cult ritual of obedience, and it is ridiculous. You had to take a PCR test, which is not a test. It's a DNA collection, a biometric eyeball recognition, palm print recognition that you'll now see at the airports. That is not any different than the PCR tests, which were rolled out at the airports first, then are now going to be part of our courthouses and our county buildings, all going to be required real ID for accessing the jail or a courtroom. You're going to have a real ID, verified biometric fingerprint, eyeball recognition, or PCR test result, which of course is DNA. Your DNA is collected into a dossier. All the doctors, all the nurses, all the hospital administrators, they all lied. They all lied about COVID. They all lied about face diapering. They all lied about social distancing. They all lied at the assisted living facilities. They all instituted max vax mandates for COVID. They're all criminals, 100%. United States Congress, the United States Supreme Court, the presidency, the White House, the executive branch of government, every agency of the federal government, which would extend out to beyond the National Institute of Health, the NIH, but would also include the CDC and the FDA and the IRS and the Department of Energy and the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, and all the federal judges, all the appellate judges, and all the state assembly, all the governor's offices, from Gavin Newsom to Screw Your Freedom, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to Ron DeSantis, to Greg Abbott, to the governor of Hawaii, to the governor of Pennsylvania, to the governor of New York, all 100% COVID criminals, every single one of them. Locally, I had John Elgart, who is a many-time district champion, many-time national champion in cycling, complete hypocrite, bald-faced liar, and as usual, wrong again. I told him Marion Jones was on drugs. I told him that Lance Armstrong was on drugs, and he argued with me like he's smarter than me or something. He's most definitely stupider than me. Anyway, he is proven wrong. He's never apologized. He's never going to apologize because he's too cowardly of a person to admit he's wrong. Nancy Russell, she's a odious person in Marin County, and she attempted to get me thrown out of the Marin Cycling Club, which of course they can't legally do it. And I quit. How's that? Because the Marin Cycling Club is a disgrace. They were a disgrace during COVID. The entire county of Marin is a military intelligence spook prison. And David Leon and Nancy Russell are two examples of how stupid the people who live in Marin County and who pretend like they are smarter than you. Arrogant and stupid. In the Mormon side, I got Randy Blossel. There's another arrogant, pompous, stupid Mormon. LDS, clueless clown. All right. You know, pride cometh before the storm. All these people have a bunch of pride. Randy Merck, he's a disgrace. A disgrace. I told him that Lance Armstrong was a doper. Then he runs the Lake Tahoe American Century event, or he used to before he went over to Charles Schwab. But before that, he was at American Century. He ran that golf tournament. He golfed with Lance Armstrong. He got on his knees and did this "I am not worthy" act to Lance when Lance sunk a long putt. Randy Merck, you're a disgrace. You're a disgrace. You have lost your way. I wouldn't say you lost your way. You never knew your way in the first place. You just follow the money. You'll do whatever. You'll play whatever game, wear a face diaper, promote the COVID, pimping out. You'll do that for money. You'll do it for money, right? That's what a prostitute does. You pimp out yourself. Anyway, that's what he did. And he did it for Charles Schwab. He did it for Bank of America. He did it for American Century. Every single executive for every corporation, all international corporations operating throughout the world, all COVID cult criminals, 100%. So I understand if someone took a position that we should not be vaccinated and we should not social distance and we should not wear a face diaper, that you'll lose your job. But you know what? You should lose your job. You shouldn't make $5 million a year because you're a liar. Why should your job be depending on lying? But everyone's job in corporate America is based on lying. It's about denying smart dust. It's about denying chemtrails in favor of getting paid to have a job, that you have to lie to have a job. That's where we are in this world. Do you really want to be Lance Armstrong? I mean, this guy is going to go on to be the governor of Texas, and then he's going to be taking Donald Trump's job. He's going to be president of the United States. He's a narcissist. He's a doper. He's a pathological liar. He even admitted it on Oprah. He knew it was wrong, and he did it anyway. He knew it was wrong, and he did it anyway. He wouldn't have a career if he wasn't a doper. all the people in the Tour de France that you watched this year in 2026 destroyed Lance Armstrong's records. And Lance Armstrong's records were all based on cheating, lying, and doping. And all those records have been pummeled into the ground by people who cheated and lied even more than he did. But nobody's talking about that. We just focus on Anthony Fauci and Lance Armstrong. But you do know that Tadej Pogacar and his boss, Mario Giannetti, and Remco Evenepoel, and Jonas Vingegaard, which he's on really the Rabobank team. They've changed the name to Velisma Leasing. Velis, I don't know what it's called now. It's Rabobank. It's always been associated with doping scandals, always. So it doesn't take Detective Columbo to find the truth. All you got to do is just look up at the sky. This is the truth. This is human augmentation. This is not geoengineering. This does do weather modification and weather warfare. It does, but its purpose is to augment people so they'll end up following fraudulent people like Rand Paul, who cloaks himself in a 13-striped flag, and to follow people like Anthony Fauci, who wants to inject you with a biocyber interface. And they want you to believe in lies like the Apollo moon landings within the construct of a zero trust environment. Don't you get it? They want you to obey in accordance with the Geneva Global Governance obelisk. This obelisk stands in the center of Geneva, Switzerland. This is an obelisk. If you Google it, you will find no record of any obelisk in Geneva. But this is a photograph from Geneva, Switzerland. So I don't know what to tell you. They lie on Wikipedia. So, welcome to the show. Welcome to the jungle. They lie every day. You can stay or go. All right, that's my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Do like and share. I am heavily shadow banned, but those are just the short list of people that are in the Liars Club Hall of Fame. Hope you enjoyed them. Believe me, there's another million people that I could add to that list. Take care now, and do get yourself a juxtaposition mug, which you can have even if you're not a paid member. You can still purchase this separately. All right. Take care. We'll talk soon. Bye now.